Hello, welcome back to episode 131 of Kaiju Curry House. This is part 2 of our interview with Mr. Jeremy Robinson, who is the fantastic author who has brought us Nemesis. It is his new book, which is an alternate reality take of the Project Nemesis series. Join with us also tonight is regular co-host Paul. We are going to be diving into the new book and asking Jeremy some questions which you, the fans, have submitted. So without further ado, folks, welcome to the podcast. Jeremy, thanks a million for coming back on.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun last time. I'm glad to be back.
Oh, you're too kind. So we're going to start this out with everybody's favorite dad pun. What have Kaiju been up to? Paul, I'm going to pick on you.
Fair enough. Since the last episode, not a huge amount, would you believe? But I did. Thanks. Just arrived today. I haven't even opened it yet. But a sneak peek.
You've always got
a Power Rangers Tyrannosaurus Dinozord from Super 7.
Oh,
quite a
goodness.
big old box there. I've never had a Super 7 before, but I just came across it online. I was like, that looks nice.
I thought their figures were smaller than that. That's a big old box.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. So I can't wait to crack it open, but it just arrived today and I haven't had a chance yet.
Wow, you're going to have to tell me how that goes. Jeremy, were you a Power Rangers fan?
No, I think I missed like the Power Rangers window. Like my childhood ended and Power Rangers came out around the time I got married and was dirt poor and not able to watch TV on cable or anything like that. So, and I missed the Power Rangers window.
No, that's sad times. I was going to say, are they going to have a Dragon Zord one, Paul?
Yeah, I think they have got because they seem to be doing them in waves. So I think this is wave 1. But yeah, I'm sure there's like a Dragon Zord coming out at some point.
We have discussed it previously in the podcast. The Dragon Zord is the superior Zord of the Power Rangers.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Tommy whooped and walloped all of them as the Dragon Zord, and I will hear no contest or anything else. As a matter of fact, the Dragon Zord beat the White Ranger Tiger Zord in the episode where they clashed. Do you know that?
Weren't they the same?
So I think that this is really funny because obviously someone knew that the fans favored the Dragon Zord more than the Tiger Zord. I personally felt that going from a dragon to a tiger was a bit of a downgrade. But anyways, they had the Dragon Zord fight the Tiger Zord, and the Tiger Zord could not do it on its own, which I thought was really funny. So green's also my favorite color. So green Power Ranger, got that going on. Paul, you get to spin the tables around.
Okay, let's go over to Jeremy. What have Kaiju been up to?
I've really been enjoying a show on Netflix called Blue Eye Samurai. I had no idea what it was, but discovered it 2 nights ago and have since watched 6 episodes. It's kind of like a really cool anime, and the writing and art are both fantastic. So yeah, Blue Eye Samurai.
Cool beans. Any teaser on what it's about?
Well, it's about a blue-eyed samurai. And it takes place during a time period in Japan where white people were forbidden to be there. And so people with blue eyes were considered to be less than human or demons because of their eye color. So it's about someone who was born with blue eyes in Japan and is kind of looking for revenge on the one of 4 white men who are still in Japan, who is probably her father and made her the demon. Yeah.
Oh.
Really, really good fight scenes, which I like. And it's definitely adult, not for the kids.
Yeah, I can't imagine a samurai anime being, too kid friendly. These things just don't jive. Interesting. Is that a Netflix original?
I believe so.
Ooh. Netflix
Yeah, and it just popped up on my feed. I was like, what the heck is this? So I watched the first episode and I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I'm left. Jeremy, we're going to force you to do the pun. Got to do the pun.
I have to remember the pun. What the kaiju have? What is that? What the kaiju have you been up to? Or
yeah, that's it. This is why the people listen. This is amazing. So Joe has got 2 things happening in his life right now. So a fabulous family member has decided to gift me Godzilla Singular Point on DVD,
Oh
which
wow,
yeah, I'm
that's quite yeah. You can't get them in the UK. That's Japanese only, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, but I have an American player in my home, so like same region, so I can handle
Oh,
that. So I was actually pretty chuffed with that because hard copy media, it's what makes the world go round. Other thing that I've managed to do is finish the book Nemesis. It was pretty darn good. I will tell you, Paul. I will tell you. We should talk about it sometime.
okay.
And also, I mentioned this last time we recorded, but I think it just gives a little bit more. I need to give it a little bit more cred. The Gamera series on Netflix was interesting in the fact that if you get past the intro to the episode, they usually go much darker than what you're expecting. And that was refreshing for me because whilst Gamera is the friend of all children, it was good to see monsters trying to eat children too. I thought that was, that was a bit more realistic. It's
So
kind
you're
of
saying the tone of the show is different than what you get in the first few minutes?
so. How do
I watched the first few minutes and I was like, I don't think I can handle this.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was at. So like the first 5, maybe 10 minutes of the first episode, I was kind of watching it and I was just like, I'm like a Gamera the Invincible, Heisei Gamera, sort of guy. I like to have a little bit more dark tone to my Gamera. I think that I don't mind like the psychic links and the stuff like that, but just like I want some intense risk and I want some real world consequences. And the first episode, like you have the group of kids that are just kind of hanging out and being pally and all that. And then you have like the group of bullies, which, we don't like them. And then, it does its intro thing where you have like an upbeat kind of pop song. And, it's a bit nauseating for someone like me who really wants like the darker end of things. And then if you get past that, you get an episode full of Gauss birds eating people, which I was on board for. And then, every episode after that, there's just like a parent. I mean, like they really went for it. If you stick with it, it's just like
all right.
The Gamera monsters specifically aim to eat children. That is part of the plot point. And I was just like, okay. So
that's good news.
If you can make it past that, I think that the hardcore Gamera fans, the reason that they've been so attracted to it is because they were going to stick with it no matter what. And then they've gotten past that original hurdle, which is the introduction to the characters, which, to be fair, I don't think that was necessarily done in the most stellar way, but potentially this is aimed at a younger audience than myself, so I won't begrudge it. But it does do a bit of a tone shift, and I was thankful for that. So anyways, let's get to the meat of the episode. So we haven't actually done a kaiju letters or a kaiju mail in a while, have we, Paul?
No, it's been a while, so great to have some listener feedback.
Yeah, so Jeremy, I gotta say, you managed to rake in quite a few questions via our contact at UK Kaiju email address. And we're going to get started on those. But I think, Paul, you also asked our Facebook group. So do you want to go first? I think you had...
Absolutely. Yeah. I can reel off some questions for you.
Cool.
So we'll go for them now. Right. We've got Zach Cole has said, my question for Jeremy would be, what is your favorite Nemesis story you've written?
Ooh.
Man, that's tough.
Kane is somewhere saying, it's the new book. Plug the new book.
I know, right? Yeah, I mean, I would say the first Nemesis, Project Nemesis, is probably tied with the new book. I like them both equally. They're very different stories. Project Nemesis is a little more personal to me because it takes place where I grew up. And this one is like adult Jeremy, like taking the reins and making it dark. And
we definitely
there's like different parts of me that likes different ones.
There we go.
Okay, excellent stuff. We've got Brandon Hickley Smith, and his question is, what was it like writing the first chapter of the Godzilla Rage Across Time graphic novel? And would there be any chance of the Nemesis Saga becoming a movie franchise or TV series?
Well, writing Godzilla was
Listen to
awesome.
the other episode I sent.
Yeah, right. Uh, the other Godzilla was that was an honor to be the first one to do it. It kind of took the pressure off because it let me set the tone. Kind of like I didn't have to like follow anyone else.
Yeah,
They
no,
all
one
had to
That's
follow me.
good.
like straight
Yeah.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was nice. As for TV movie, can't believe you don't know this already. Not you guys. Brandon. Um, yes, so Nemesis is in development as a TV series with Sony Pictures Television and Chad Stahelski directing. He's the director of John Wick. And he did an interview recently, Chad did, and someone sent me a part of it. And in that interview, he does confirm that we are working with a streamer. He does not say who it is, so I'm not going to say who it is. But we are working with a streamer, so the show is definitely moving forward.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, and
yeah. Okay.
Streaming service.
I was YouTuber for a second there, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, a YouTube streamer or a game streamer. Yeah, so the show is moving forward, and hopefully will be in production next year.
Okay. Just following up on the Godzilla one, what was it like with Toho? Did they push back at all on how you wanted to go, or was it
Nope, not at all. I never heard anything from Toho.
Okay, that's good.
So I'm assuming they just approved.
Yeah.
Free creative reign. Awesome.
Yeah,
man.
exactly. Right. Sally Tierney Mitchell, she's trying to write a book herself. And she would like to know if you've got any tips on how to motivate yourself.
Eesh. I don't, that one's tough for me because I was born with like this internal motivation. Like even as a child, I was working on all kinds of creative projects all the time. It's just what I do. If I wasn't getting paid, I'd still be doing all this. So for me, it's like breathing or eating. Where if I don't get to be creative every day, I start to feel horrible. So for me, the motivation is just built in. I need to create to live. So not doing that is just bad for me. So I don't know. It's kind of like if you every time you had a milkshake, you got sick from it, you'd probably stop eating milkshakes. So for me, it's like just natural progression of this makes me feel good, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, that's good. So you haven't had writer's block at all then for your Nemesis
I do
Saga?
not ever have writer's block.
Wow, that's brilliant.
I know what I'm writing for the next 2 years.
Nice.
That is planning ahead, isn't it?
Yeah.
And before we get talking about the book, I've got a question actually that's kind of related. Because I know you're a gamer.
Yep.
I know you tried. Well, we're hoping to get Nemesis in. Oh, there's Kaiju Combat, was it?
Yeah, that was original. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was wondering, if you could now pitch Nemesis Saga as a game, what type of game would it be?
RPG.
Yeah, I would say I would want something story based, where you can play both as the human and the monster rather than a simple like fighting game. I think it would be cool to not only be Nemesis and destroy things and wreak havoc and things like that, but it would be really cool to see Nemesis from a human's perspective.
Yeah.
Like navigating Boston as a human being and like being able to look up and there's like Nemesis. That would be really cool. And I wanted, when VR first came out, I had friends that were doing it, and I really wanted to get a Nemesis game where you were like on top of a building and Nemesis was like approaching you and just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, so I just think having that dual perspective would be really cool.
Oh. Well, I mean, with the TV series and this new book, perhaps we'll see. Yes. Joe, let me pass over to you to ask some questions.
All right, so we have a few questions. So I will start off with Oliver, who has asked, pertinent to this episode, what made you decide to write an alternate universe book? So I'm asking, where did that motivation come from?
Part of it was just that Nemesis is always on my mind. I'm not sure. I mean, probably because my office is full of Nemesis stuff, but and the Nemesis fans are like my most vocal fans. I have lots of successful books, but the fans behind Nemesis are much more like Nemesis, Nemesis, like what's happening next. And then with the coming of the TV show, so there's always just this reminder that Nemesis isn't done. Like it's not an old book that's going away. It's an old book that's still growing. So I wanted to add more to that, in part for the fans who were looking forward to more, and in case the show does well, and Sony is looking for more material to do as maybe a movie or an anime or something like that. So doing Nemesis allows us to have more content for the IP to continue to grow.
So I'll kind of follow up on this question now that you've said that. So will OG Nemesis ever come back in a book?
Prime? Nemesis
So,
Prime?
no, so the original Nemesis from the storyline from so
I don't ever rule anything out. It's possible in a crossover or something, but I left her so happy where she is. So it's always possible, but it's not like on the radar.
Unlikely at the moment. Cool,
Yeah.
babe. All
It's
right.
possible that it could continue someday as like a comic book as well.
All right. All right. So cool. So next question is from James. And he is asking, you probably heard this question before, but we'll ask again. What is a kaiju from another franchise you would love to see Nemesis, and he has read your books apparently, because he says without a pilot, fight?
Fight. Do I get to determine who wins?
I that isn't specified in the question, but
I mean, I thought the question was going to be team up with, and then I was going to say Gamera. But fight, I guess I would say Godzilla, because I think Nemesis would win, and then people would know that the queen is more powerful than the king. So
there we go.
Sorry to all the people I just defended.
Don't worry, this isn't the Star Wars fandom. Yeah, I just did that. All right, so next question is from Jade, who has asked, which character in the Nemesis book has been your favorite to write?
Which character?
I think we're implying human characters here too.
Yes.
We should try and steer you towards that direction.
Man, that's tough. I think maybe Graham, the main character from the new book, simply because
this
holds true for John Hudson as well. John Hudson was kind of like an extension of myself when I wrote it, a while ago now. He kind of looks like me, grew up in the same area as me. So he's like younger Jeremy, and Graham is more like older, you're getting old Jeremy, whose outlook on life is a little like less silly. He's struggling through things, and but still funny along the way. So that it was kind of cathartic to be Graham for a bit.
Oh, there we go. All right, so Billy has asked, how hard was it to come up with a new monster, and where did your inspiration come from? So I think we talked a little bit about this in the last episode, but I suppose the thought process of coming up with something new and how you might have had to shut yourself away so that you did come up with like a new concept. What was that like?
Yeah, because it took so long, like between Nemesis books, then I would think about it every now and then. So I think I can't like identify one point in time where I was like, aha. It would kind of just like slowly. The question I was asking myself is, what would the world be like 13 years later if Nemesis was still around? and that's when I came up with this weird, like, what would we do if we could give Nemesis a person and prevent, millions of deaths? Would we just give the person? I think we would. I think, that might be an actual solution. Needs of the many, all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of like just the logic path. That's where I ended up.
Right. So Claire has asked, female characters play a center role in most of the Nemesis books, but you have always written from the perspective, predominantly, of a male character. In the future, will there be a female main character in a Nemesis book? Or a main protagonist, female character in a Nemesis book?
Well, I mean, Nemesis is a female, so the book is named after her. But human characters, I wouldn't rule it out. There are a large number of my non-Nemesis books that are from a female perspective, and I really do enjoy writing from that perspective just because it's different. But, and this is horrible, books with female protagonists don't sell nearly as well. It's an unfortunate truth, and I even did a poll with a fan group about it, and women predominantly don't read books with female main characters. And so the women were saying, we want male characters, and the men were saying male characters. So it was kind of surprising to me because I really enjoy female main characters. Yeah, so it's possible that when Nemesis gets to the point where people don't care about the gender of the main character, then I could do that, and I would love to do that. But until then, I'm kind of like stuck. If I want to keep writing, I have to write male main characters. Because I kept on being surprised, like, why aren't these books doing nearly as well? And the only factor connecting them all was that the main characters were women.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
So the next question is from Henry. And Henry asks, will there ever be more Nemesis comics? I think we have a graphic novel fan here.
Yes, hopefully. I am working on 3 graphic novels, paying for them myself, working with artists. And I'm hoping that the 4th will be a Nemesis comic. I don't know if it will be based on Project Nemesis or the new Nemesis book. Possibly a continuation of the new Nemesis book in that world, just because I think it's so visually different than reality. Yeah. So yes, if all goes according to plan, yes.
Cool.
I don't know when, but I'm actively working on the comic books. Yeah.
But Henry can look forward to it. Cool.
Just need to find like a home for them.
So this one came from someone in our home. Charlie has asked, what is your favorite monster/horror movie?
Monster horror movie. I mean, I've always enjoyed Aliens. That's like what I grew up on, and Jaws, which still horrifies me today. But I think in terms of like kaiju horror, The Host is probably
creepy
my favorite. Like, that for me was just mind blowing because it did what I like, which is really focus on the human characters and the family. And the monster was awesome. But it wasn't the center.
Yeah.
The human characters were the center, and it really carried the whole story and made it cool. So yeah, I think The Host is probably what I would classify as my favorite.
There we go. So now, Tia asks, what has been your favorite book to read, and what is the most recent book that you have read? It looks like we have a literary fan here.
Yeah, and the answer is going to be strange. The most recent book I read was a graphic novel, and it was called Sarah, and it's about female snipers in World War II on the Russian side. It was a really cool story, really interesting perspective. And so I have mostly been reading graphic novels for the last few years because I am really focusing on writing the graphic novels. And so I wanted to make sure that I was kind of like up to date on everything that was happening there, different kinds of themes and styles and stuff like that. So I've been devouring graphic novels. So I can't really recommend a new novel at all because I haven't read any in a while, which is interesting because I write them. But I think I'm more interested in the visual graphic novel storytelling after a full day of looking at words.
Yeah, I totally.
It's hard to read a novel when you write novels all the time.
Yeah, get that.
So, next question comes from Barney. Barney has asked, will you ever write another kaiju series that doesn't focus on Nemesis? I feel like this is a very interesting question.
Well, I've done a lot of standalone kaiju books. The Divide, Unity, Apocalypse Machine, Tether. Those are all kaiju novels. But a series, well, I never really plan a series. I always plan a standalone. And if it does really well, I think, okay, well, maybe this can be a series. So all of my books tend to end in a way that would allow for a series, but also have a definite ending. So again, I never rule anything out, but it's not currently a plan.
There we go. Mark, being a bit cheeky here, but I loved this question because we're putting Nemesis in a category here, and this could be quite divisive. Is Nemesis a dog or a cat?
Dog.
Dog. There we go.
Didn't even have to think
No
about it.
hesitation.
No hesitation. Nemesis is a dog. You heard it here, folks. First, folks. Thank you for that, Mark. Dan, how long does it typically take you to write a book?
Well, these days about 2.5 months. I tend to write a chapter a day, sometimes 2 chapters a day. I used to write 2 chapters a day every day, but I've slowed down. I mean, I'm still doing, I tend to write a chapter in the morning and maybe a little bit early afternoon. And then I do switch gears to writing a screenplay or a comic book script, something like that. So it's not like, I'm still writing pretty fast. I'm just writing more than novels. But a chapter a day, about 2.5 months, 3 months tops.
Oh, gosh. All right. And then finally, we have Taylor. How do you brainstorm ideas for books? Do you have idea boards? Do you do stuff like that?
No, I probably should. I do have a whiteboard where I write down like just the big things, but it all just takes place in my head. I wrote the Infinite Timeline was something I just finished up recently, and that is 13 books. The first 9 of which are separate standalone novels that are loosely connected and all take place in the same universe. And then there's 3 more books after those 9. So there's like 3 lines leading to 3 crossover novels, which then lead to one grand finale novel. All of that was done and brought together without complaints from anyone yet, without any notes or cards or anything. So it's just kind of like all in my head. So I have a weird brain like that. I don't write outlines. Occasionally I do write down character descriptions as I write, but not before. So I kind of just do whatever feels right at the moment, and then try to take a note of it just in case I have to like mention their eye color again.
So it's very organic from that standpoint. It's like you're literally bumping into someone on the street. Cool.
Yep. Yeah, started a new novel yesterday. Have no idea where it's going to go.
Handsome American named Joe who lives in England, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Sweet. All right. So those are the questions that we've had written in. We want to talk about this new book. So it's really interesting. You've touched on it, but what we are looking at here is a world where the Nemesis series didn't happen and Miyagi didn't die, and it wasn't her DNA that Nemesis got combined with, so to speak. So what we have here is kind of like the pure Nemesis, and she's just kind of been going around righting wrongs in her own special way.
Yep.
And people have had to play nice.
Mhm.
I found like all the little quirks of those first few chapters really fun as someone who is a fan of the original series. Paul, what did you think?
First of all, we don't want to go too spoilery here, do we? Because we want people to enjoy it spoiler
pick it
free.
up, for sure, yeah.
Okay. So a bit of a confession. Joe said, right, Jeremy's coming on. We're going to be talking about Nemesis. So, read the books. Like, great, okay. So I started reading Nemesis. And I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I thought it would be a standard, there's going to be a monster and the military will fight, and that's about it. And then it opens up with a detective going through a house where there's dead bodies posed. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is fantastic. It was so much darker and more adult than I was ever expecting. And then Joe was like, oh, how are you getting on with the book? I was like, oh yeah, really. I was like, different to what I thought, but loving it. And he said, you are reading Project Nemesis, right? And I said, no, I'm reading Nemesis. So then I had to go and start reading Project Nemesis.
I'll take the blame for this. So in our initial recording with you, I was just like, yeah, we've got all this, great stuff and everything, but like, how are you getting on with the book? Because I'm always pressuring Paul to read because I'm a really weird friend like that. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, I'm reading the new book. It's great. I'm like, and I'm just thinking like, we should probably start with the original, Paul. So yeah, but Paul and I have both completed the new book.
Yeah, so I did go back and I finished Nemesis, and I absolutely love it. It just kept building and building, and I thought, oh, we've reached the peak, but then my Kindle was saying, no, you still got, you're 60% through. It's like, oh, there's still more to come. What else are you going to give me?
There's
this is
more.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It just snowballed. And when I thought it peaked, no, it carried on going. It was a hell of a ride. Absolutely loved it.
Awesome. That's tends to be how I write my books, because when I'm writing, I'm kind of entertaining myself. And so I know that I've got 90,000 words to write. And so every chapter, there might be a little dip, but it's always just going up. Like the intensity and the bigness of it, it's just going to keep on going until the end. Otherwise, I'm just like, whatever. So to entertain myself, it gets more and more bonkers as they go.
Or try not to be spoilerific here, but we know that Nemesis eats people, so we're going to go with that. So Nemesis, her arrival in the new book, I feel like you really took your time with that and gave her some majesty that wasn't necessarily in the original books. Now, the original Project Nemesis, when she's suddenly on the scene, like, it is utter chaos, so that's different. But now that we're in a world that's adapted to her, like her arrival and their tracking of her, notice the Hudson scale immediately. I was sad to find out there was a little less Hudson in this book, to be fair. But anyway, I really enjoyed that, because like the way that you described, her membranes, the way that, like she was just looming up, and the person that, she was there, to judge, we'll say, like, I really liked your portrayal of that, because he was a nasty character that nobody liked. And I really liked how Graham's like, he's going to go through the same things that they all do. They're all hard as nails when we put them up there. And then the second that they see her, they piss their pants. And that is just the end of it. And I really enjoyed like how you built that up. Again, it was just like the first few chapters, and already like we've got like a really great, completely different timeline. So what I was really afraid of, I'm not going to lie, in this book, is that you would try something new and adventurous, which is really brave. But what we get like a Steve Alton parallel time shift. So Steve Alton is the author behind the Meg series, and his book's been turned into films. but he decided to do something. He also wrote The Lock,
Yep.
which is a great standalone book, but he wanted to tie it in with the Meg series. And what we ended up having was a cross between Groundhog Day, Close Encounters, and the Meg.
Huh.
And I was neither expecting that, nor did I particularly enjoy it, because we had a guy that basically would, at one point in the book, he would die, and then he would come back, and then like he would like play through, what's that Tom Cruise movie, Edge of Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Basically be doing.
Okay. Which book was that?
Oh, I'll have to look it up. I'll get it for us.
Vostok or
Vostok, yeah, that's the one.
okay.
And
I haven't read that one.
it didn't jive with me because I was there for the prehistoric animals and like the Indiana Jones adventure quality of it,
Yeah.
I wasn't it really was like my version of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Like there were the aliens that just like, why are you here? But like fortunately for you, Jeremy, you do aliens and running them up really well in your books. So, but and it was to be expected. So like again, like we've completely shifted the time frame, and it isn't like, I mean, like there was kind of like a butterfly effect here, but it wasn't something where it was more of the same in this novel. And I think you'll probably agree with that, Paul. Like this was, I mean, like we still have some of like the good hype action in there. Don't get me wrong. Like you've totally thrown that in for your fans, but what we have is a book that has, I can't think of any kaiju book, comic, or film which has the same things going on. And it's taken it back to like what Nemesis is again, a unique creative development for the kaiju genre. And I love it. I absolutely love it because we have people cooperating with this thing that will not be appeased and either get in the way and like face the consequences, or you can learn to live with it and deal with it in kind of like a state of symbiosis, if you will.
Right.
And I mean, like, how do I say this? It's kind of like the kaiju genre meets Death Note, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's kind of a way to like put it out, isn't it? Like, am I wrong, Paul?
No, that's one way you can look at it. Yeah, but
what were
they're
your
not writing the names?
What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting for me reading part of it, and I could see it's like this established world, you say, where Nemesis is part of human life now. Everyone's used to it, and then going back and seeing like how it began, but not how that Nemesis began. It was really bizarre, but it's fantastic for me, especially that I can recommend Nemesis and I can say, check this book out, and if you like it, do you know what? There's a whole series for you to read, but it's all self-contained in this one book. So give this new book a try, and hopefully you'll love it as much as I did. And then you can go back and you've got, was it 13? No, 9 books, isn't it?
The original Nemesis series, 6 books.
6 books.
If you include Island 731.
Yes, which I have started to read. Actually, I should have mentioned that. I've started to read.
Oh,
now.
our boy Charlie, he's been really playing that game called Grounded. Have either of you?
Oh yes, I like that.
So for those of you of the kaiju genre who just have no clue what Grounded is, and to be fair, I didn't either. Most of you have probably seen Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or know of it. So the kids are shrunk and they're in the back garden, and they befriend Auntie and they fend off a scorpion and all this other stuff. Grounded is basically like a prolonged version of that, and you have to deal with the things in the backyard as a small tiny person. So Charlie is just all about spiders at the moment, and I'm just so tempted to get him the comics for Island 731. I know. I would get an earful from his mom.
How old is Charlie?
Charlie is 12.
Yeah, a couple more years.
Couple more years, yeah. But you see, I don't know if he's going to be into the spiders. But the thing is like we found like a really large house spider the other day
Mm.
because the time of year where they come in, and Charlie was just
Yep.
like, yeah. But to turn it around, kaiju related, like there are all sorts of giant spider movies, and I think I'm going to have to introduce him to one of them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, like Eight-Legged Freaks is just so much fun.
Right.
No, yeah. Well, Eight-Legged Freaks, I think that's definitely going to be coming up pretty soon. I mean, like we just got to find a night where my daughters aren't home. Yeah.
So I've got to stop you there. Saying, is there an Island 731 comic book? Are you saying, in addition
It
to
was, and
the...
it was
Yes.
canceled. So we got 3 issues, and I only got a single copy of the 3rd issue. And then the publisher pulled it, and shortly after went out of business. So
Yeah, Jeff Zorno did.
unfinished.
I remember seeing it come out.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yep. So we might. I mean, that is something we could also revisit. The scripts are all mine, so I can redo it with a new artist. And just I don't own the original art. I own the story. So, but we can redo the art and do it again.
There we go.
If the comic books take off, hopefully I'll get to do lots of them.
So, totally like deviating, not that we ever do that on this podcast. What kind of comic books have you been writing?
They're all very different. I'm kind of like
Covering all bases as we are.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the first one is called 1001 Saves the World. It's about this genetic can't say the word, genetic experiment created to explore other planets, and so it can very quickly adapt to any environment that it finds itself in. So like if you threw it off the cliff, it might grow wings, or it might suddenly expand full of gas and float away. It's a really weird kind of creature that has no features. It has no nose, no ears. It has nothing down below. It's kind of like a blank slate, and it can become anything it has to, though it doesn't have control over what it becomes. So it's often a very weird and painful change. And it's funny because this character is something I came up with in college. Like,
I'd love to see that character on the dating scene, to be perfectly honest. I think that would be absolutely hilarious as a premise. Like, can you imagine like it's been wanting to find love, so it goes on speed dating, and every time like the new person sits down across from it, it suddenly like morphs into like this idealized version based on what their mind is projecting. And but it can't stay, like true to itself. And it needs to find the one special person that will see it for what it is. I think that.
Yeah, basically it, but with monsters.
But with monsters, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that's like post-apocalyptic. It takes place 1,000 years in the future. It's kind of like Sundar the Barbarian world, where there's lots of monsters and creatures, and the only things left alive are these monsters, and people are like little tiny people now. They're called peeps. They're just
We did that deliberately. That was wow. Okay.
yeah. So that's 1001, and then it's called Tichka, which has a silent P at the beginning, and that's Russian for little bird. And it's about urban explorers who go to the abandoned Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, where Russia's original space shuttles are kept. And it's kind of like this big abandoned site. And that is all true. And so what they discover is that the little bird, which was Russia's second shuttle, which they claimed never went into space, actually went up into space, found something, brought it back down, and it resulted in the end of Russia's space program. So it's kind of like they find what that was, and it's it's a horror story. It's pretty brutal. And the third one, which I have the script completed and we're currently looking for an artist for, is called The Excommunicated, and it's about a nun that has been excommunicated from the church and a demon that has been kicked out of hell for botching the same exorcism, one on each side.
Did they solve mysteries together?
Huh?
Did they solve mysteries together?
Yeah.
They solve, well, yes. So then they have to work together to figure out what is going on that resulted in them both being kicked out of the church and hell, because maybe the church and hell are working together on something.
Ooh.
Oh, it's very on the nose, that. Oh man.
Well, they all sound really good.
Yeah, it all sounds fun. So I'm going to ask a final question here, and then unfortunately we're coming to time. But will you write more Nemesis novels in this alternate universe?
I would say it's very possible.
Very possible. Okay, I'll take
Not
it.
guaranteed. It depends on how the novel is received and how well it sells. Like if it's somehow a flop, then I can't justify a second one. But I think it will do well, especially with buzz about the show. The show, like even if it doesn't do well on release, for some reason the show coming out could bump it back up. So there's lots of ways that I could justify doing a second one, and because I really enjoy writing the characters, I'm hoping I get to. So if not as a novel, certainly as a comic book, but hopefully a novel.
Yeah. Hopefully we like that. So we've come to the part of the podcast episode where we recommend fabulous things that our listeners may not have heard about or just experienced. So I'll start off. If nothing else, I think that you should. I'm going to plug your book. I think that you should totally read Nemesis when it comes out. If you like the Project Nemesis novels, you're going to love Nemesis, just as a completely different take on an already different character. But even if the original Nemesis novels didn't necessarily tickle your fancy, the new Nemesis book might very well, because it's a similar concept, but yet at the same time, it's such a completely different storyline. And again, I like to think that I have come across a lot of monsters and kaiju, and one where humanity has just adapted into placating a really ornery beast. I think that hasn't been done before, that I've come across, not at the level that's in this book. So it really does come down to like what you touched on in the last episode that we spoke with you, that like this goddess actually has her worshiping cults, and the government's working with her, but like they kind of aren't. It's just really interesting. It's a totally fresh take again, and you should totally read it. So yeah, check out Nemesis. It's going to be hitting Amazon on the 21st of November, correct, Joey?
Yep, and Audible on December 19th, I think.
Ooh, wow, right before.
Yeah, there was a hiccup with the audio production, so it's coming out a little bit late.
Oh, no worries. But anyways, yeah, you need to check out this book, folks. It is absolutely fantastic. It is a great yarn. I've been reading it on the train to work, and it's been great. Absolutely great. Paul, if nothing else.
I mean, I feel like you've said enough there. But yeah,
Sorry,
Nemesis
stole
is
everybody else's. I'm greedy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, check out Nemesis. If you like kaiju but want something that's completely unique, because it's not like anything anything that I'd read before. And also I'll give a shout out to your tribe, Jeremy. So facebook.com/groups/jr.tribe. It's just a great community there where you can talk about your love of Nemesis with other people. And just before we start recording, Jeremy was showing off a very cool Nemesis t-shirt. So we'll shout out, if you go to tpublic.com /user/J Robinson author, then you can get some merchandise of Nemesis, like t-shirts and mugs. So yeah, check that out.
Jeremy, if nothing else, what do you have to recommend for us?
I'm going to recommend a comic book, perhaps series. It's definitely 2 graphic novels called Kaiju Score, which is it's like a heist movie with kaiju. So in the first book, they are using a kaiju attack as a distraction, basically.
As cover for the, yeah, yeah.
And then the second one, I thought it was pretty cool that there's like sleeping kaiju, like really huge things. And apparently there's something inside of kaiju that is very valuable. So they actually break in to inside of a kaiju. So they're doing like a heist movie out of a kaiju. So I thought that was pretty cool. And the art's really good, the writing's really good. So I enjoyed both those.
Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Are those easy to procure? Are they manga? Are they just comics you can get off of Amazon? What are they?
Yeah, you should be able to find them on Amazon. I found mine just in my comic book store.
Oh, cool. There we go. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us again, Jeremy.
Yes, thank you.
We did promise a giveaway for a signed book, and we will let you review questions and draw from a hat, as it were, as to who is the lucky winner. And we will go ahead and announce that on our next episode. So thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. I appreciate it as Supervan. This has been a dream come true. Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, everybody who has submitted questions. They were all great. I'm particularly glad to know that Nemesis is a dog. And as always, folks, keep it kaiju.